Tonight, a convicted war criminal suddenly drinking poison and then shouting a message to the judge.
It's no secret that almost all criminals get antsy during court proceedings, but some tend to lose control of their emotions and make terrible mistakes.
I'm sorry to put you guys through this. That's just not...
Today, we're going to have a look at some of the worst courtroom incidents that resulted in the death of convicts. Their sudden outbursts and attacks eventually became the reason they lost their lives at the hands of law enforcement officers. Here are 9 convicts who died in the courtroom and scarred many people for life. Number 1. Daniel Mark Driver. Daniel Mark Driver's demeanor during a 1983 psychiatric evaluation revealed a tendency to smile nervously. After Driver pleaded guilty to child provocation charges, the doctor's observation of Driver's continuous smiling during the evaluation led him to suggest that this might be the only way that Driver expressed emotions. The tragic incident unfolded in a courtroom when Ellie Nessler, a distressed mother, took matters into her own hands. Her son had accused Driver of physically assaulting him, and Nessler, fearing that Driver would evade justice, resorted to drastic action. This resulted in her facing charges for taking his life, though she was released on bail pending further legal proceedings. Her decision to confront Driver directly in the courtroom captured widespread attention. Her defense's argument that she was under the influence of drugs at the time complicated her portrayal during legal proceedings. Despite the complexities, she ultimately faced the consequences, enduring years of legal battles before pleading guilty to manslaughter. Driver's troubled history with the law added another layer to the narrative, and his previous conviction for similar offenses in 1983, coupled with his attempt to deflect blame onto the child's mother during the process, had painted a troubling picture of his character. This backdrop of criminal history and psychological evaluation deepened the complexity of the situation, and in the midst of everything, Melvin Belli, a prominent lawyer, offered personal representation to Nessler. Number 2. Slobodan Praljak. During the Bosnian Civil War from 1992 to 1995, Bosnian Croats and Muslims engaged in a fierce combat for 11 months. Slobodan Praljak had pursued an ordinary life as a professor and businessman until the Croatian War of Independence erupted in 1991. Joining the Croatian military, he ascended to the rank of general, playing a significant role in the conflict. However, allegations of war crimes overshadowed his leadership, including attacks on religious sites and mistreatment of Bosniak men at a notorious drill camp. After the war, he resumed civilian life, establishing businesses and writing books, but in the early 2000s he faced war crime charges by the International Criminal Tribunal. In 2013, he would be convicted of crimes against humanity for commanding Bosnian Croat forces, and the tribunal found him negligent in preventing atrocities that were committed by his troops. Things like rounding up Muslims while ignoring planned violations and attacks on international organizations. They upheld his conviction along with 5 others, but acknowledged part of his appeal concerning Mostar's old bridge as a military target. Following the verdict, a lawyer for another war criminal had expressed skepticism over him taking his own life, questioning how he obtained poison in a highly secure environment inside the courtroom. After the appeal's denial, he publicly proclaimed his innocence and consumed poison from a vial. He was swiftly rushed to the hospital, where he succumbed to its effects shortly afterwards. Dutch authorities initiated an inquiry into the circumstances, with a confirmation of rulings against him and other defendants. The tribunal concluded its more than 20 years of investigative and judicial efforts. Number 3. David Paradiso. The turmoil in the courtroom and violence erupted from David Paradiso's arrest in December of 2006. He would be charged with the suspected murder of his girlfriend, Eileen. Their relationship had barely been a few weeks when tragedy struck. It happened in the backseat of a car that was being driven by Deborah Paradiso, David's mother. Deborah claimed that she had not heard any arguments between the couple. However, in a sudden turn of events, David had attacked his girlfriend, claiming that she threatened his life. Fast forward to the courtroom in Stockton, where he was standing trial for her death, and during a break in proceedings, he attacked the presiding judge, Cinda Fox. As jurors exited, David approached Judge Fox from behind with a sharp object. Detective Eric Bradley, an experienced officer, had intervened, shooting David in order to protect the judge. David succumbed to his injuries, and the sudden incident shocked everyone present. His family, particularly his mother, had expressed immense sadness, believing that the tragic outcome could have been prevented if authorities had handled his deteriorating mental health differently. It also reignited concerns about courtroom security. In the aftermath, questions rose about how David managed to bring a weapon into the courtroom. His mother said that she had warned authorities about his potential for violence, even mentioning his possession of a weapon, but these warnings went unheeded. The trial itself would be marked with tension and uncertainty. His attorney had argued that he was under the influence of drugs when committing the crime, adding another layer of complexity to the case. Despite it all, the trial was abruptly interrupted by David's violent outburst, leading to the tragic outcome. The entire chain of events underscores the importance of addressing mental health issues in the criminal justice system and serves as a reminder of the potential consequences of overlooking or mishandling such issues. The loss of both Eileen and David, along with the trauma inflicted on those involved, highlights the urgent need for improved support and intervention for individuals struggling with mental health challenges in the legal system. Number 4. Klaus Grabowski. Mary Ann Bachmeier stood in court in West Germany in March of 1983 for the murder of Klaus Grabowski after she fired 7 bullets, taking his life. Grabowski was on trial for being inappropriate with her daughter, and now the court had sentenced her to 6 years in prison for violence and possessing a gun without permission. Bachmeier admitted to bringing a loaded weapon to court March 6th of 1981, but said she did not plan to end the life of Grabowski until she heard that he wanted to say bad things about her daughter Anna. Originally, the prosecution had charged her with abuse, but after hearing the evidence, they changed it to murder. They asked for an 8-year sentence, while Bachmeier's defense argued that she wasn't responsible for her own actions. They blamed authorities for allowing Grabowski to undergo hormone treatments that allegedly led to Anna's assault and death. The case would cause controversy, with many sympathizing with Bachmeier, who took justice into her own hands that day. However, most attention was focused on her troubled life, which was detailed in a magazine before the trial. Bachmeier had a difficult upbringing with an insulting mother, an absent father, and a stepfather who had mistreated her. She became a mother herself at age 16 and was mistreated while pregnant with her second child at 19. Psychologists would testify that her unstable mental state, influenced by her troubled past and failed relationships, made her vulnerable to manipulation by men. Anna was her third child and closest companion, and the loss of her daughter had affected Mary Ann in deep and grave ways. Number 5. Akku Yadav. Akku Yadav was an infamous criminal in India who engaged in many heinous activities, which included robbery, abuse, murder, and extortion. He grew up in an Indian slum, a place that was a hotbed for criminal activity, and he established himself operating alongside rival gangs. His criminal history dates back to 1991 and marked the beginning of a reign of terror that would last for over a decade. He and his gang terrorized the community, perpetrating several heinous crimes. His modus operandi included building a criminal empire through intimidation and violence, extorting money from the locals, and resorting to threats against anyone who dared to defy him. Despite all of it, he had managed to evade justice for many years by corrupting local law enforcement officials, bribing police officers, and offering them money and drinks in exchange for turning a blind eye to his criminal activity. As a result, they not only failed to apprehend him, but also indirectly supported his reign of terror. His criminal empire faced a significant setback when a woman would resist his advances. In retaliation, a mob, enraged by his actions, had burned down his home, and seeking refuge, he approached the police for protection. Ironically, it was under the custody of law enforcement that he met his gruesome ending. August 13th of 2004, during a bail hearing, he encountered several of his victims. Unrepentant and brazen, he had mocked and threatened a woman he had previously abused. And enraged by his audacity, the woman, accompanied by hundreds of others, launched a brutal attack on him in the courtroom itself. He was stabbed multiple times, they threw chili powder into his face, and they attacked his private parts. They exacted a swift and merciless form of justice, and the incident drew widespread attention both locally and internationally. Initial reports had described the events as a mob of women striding angrily into the courtroom and ending his life. However, conflicting narratives emerged regarding the exact circumstances of his execution. While the women involved claimed that it was an impromptu act of retribution, sources suggest that a few men had orchestrated the attack, with the women taking responsibility to shield them from repercussions. Regardless of the conflicting accounts, his death served as a grim reminder of the deep-rooted issues of crime and corruption in Indian society. The incident sparked discussions about the failures of law enforcement and the prevalence of gender-based violence and the complexities of seeking justice in marginalized communities that were plagued by crime and poverty. His demise, while violent and controversial, underscored the urgent need for systemic reform to address the underlying social and economic factors that contribute to such crimes. Number 6. Michael Marin. Michael Marin was a former Wall Street trader who was found guilty of deliberately burning down his $2.55 million mansion in Phoenix, Arizona on July the 11th of 2012. The jury convicted him based on evidence indicating that he set the fire to 4 different areas of the home, using phone books to spread the flames more rapidly. His story did begin with success. He had a career on Wall Street after having graduated from Brigham Young University and Yale Law School, and enjoyed a lavish lifestyle with multiple properties and a valuable art collection, seemingly living the American dream. But financial troubles arose when he couldn't afford the mortgage on his mansion. Despite efforts to sell or raffle off the property, he failed to resolve his financial setbacks. In a desperate attempt to alleviate his burdens, he set fire to the property, hoping to collect the insurance money. An investigation into the fire uncovered his deliberate actions, that he had scuba diving gear prepared, indicating premeditation and a plan to escape the blaze. His scheme became clear when they found evidence suggesting the fire was started intentionally in multiple areas of the home. Following a conviction for arson, he collapsed in the courtroom and later died at the hospital. The medical examiner determined that he had ingested cyanide, likely in an attempt to take his life upon receiving the guilty verdict. The tragic ending revealed the extent of his desperation and the severity of his actions. Investigators would find cyanide in his car, along with evidence suggesting that he had prepared for the outcome, including informing his son about his will. His actions were driven by financial strain, as he faced over 16 years in prison for his crime. During the arson, he escaped using a rope ladder and wore scuba gear to protect himself from smoke inhalation, highlighting the extent of his planning and desperation to avoid the consequences. His once successful life took a dark turn, leading to criminal behavior and ultimately a tragic ending fueled by desperation and a failed attempt to escape justice. Number 7. Nathaniel Richmond. In 2017, a tragic incident unfolded outside of a courthouse in Steubenville, Ohio, when a man ended the life of Judge Joseph Bruzeese Jr. before being killed by a probation officer. The attacker was identified as Nathaniel Richmond, the father of Malik Richmond, a high school football player who had been convicted of violence in 2013. Malik's case had garnered significant attention, shining a spotlight on the small Ohio city, while leading to allegations of a cover-up to protect the football team. The shooting occurred as the judge was making his way to the courthouse. He was a respected figure in the community, known for his fairness and diligence. But despite sustaining injuries, he survived the attack and was flown to a hospital for treatment. Authorities indicated that Richmond had a history of legal troubles, which included traffic violations and domestic violence and abuse. The motives behind the shooting remained unclear, with investigators unable to establish a direct link to Malik's case. Nevertheless, the targeted nature of the attack would suggest a deliberate intent. The judge was responsible for overseeing various legal matters, including a lawsuit that was filed by Richmond against a housing authority and was attacked in a manner that indicated prior knowledge of his routine. The courtroom drama took a fatal turn when Richmond was confronted and ultimately killed by a probation officer. The incident would shock the community and raise questions about courthouse security measures. Eyewitnesses recounted the chaos and confusion that ensued as gunfire erupted outside the courthouse, prompting officials to swiftly close it for the day. Malik Richmond was at the center of a previous execution case and found himself once again in the public eye following his father's violent actions. Despite being a member of the Youngstown State football team, he faced controversy and opposition when attempts were made to allow him to participate in games. The incident reignited debates that surrounded the role of athletes in society and the consequences of their actions. In the aftermath of the shooting, authorities would launch a thorough investigation that was aided by the state crime lab. The Chief Justice of the Ohio Supreme Court condemned the attack as a cowardly ambush, calling for heightened security measures to protect court personnel. The incident served as a sobering reminder of the risks involved by those working within the justice system and the importance of ensuring their safety. As the community grappled with the aftermath, tributes poured in for the judge, who was hailed as a dedicated public servant. Despite the shocking nature, the resilience and unity of the community shone through as efforts were made to come to terms with the senseless violence that had taken place that day. Number 8. Jitendra Gogi. Jitendra Gogi had a long history of clashes with the law that often involved the same circle of offenders. In 2016, when police apprehended him, he had managed to escape while being transported to court. The following year, he sought vengeance against a man in retaliation for the man's son having taken the life of one of his close associates, and later that year he would be responsible for the demise of a prominent folk singer. Authorities eventually captured him, however, his criminal activities persisted. One of his associates met his demise months after escaping custody, raising concerns that Gogi might attempt to flee to sustain his criminal enterprise. He had established connections with a gangster that was based in Dubai, and together they were involved in an extortion attempt targeting a Dubai-based businessman for 50 million rupees. Gogi's criminal journey began years earlier when he dropped out of school following his father's death in 2010, and that same year he would be implicated in a shooting incident targeting a man. During elections at a local college, he and his cohorts physically attacked and shot at 2 individuals, and he was arrested in October of 2011, leading to the formation of his own gang in order to pursue his criminal activities. Ultimately, he would meet his demise when his rivals gunned him down inside of a courtroom. Prior to his death, he had been arrested in April of the same year by Delhi police, and the charges against him detailed his involvement in 19 cases of violence and murder, as well as numerous incidents of extortion, stealing cars, and robbery. Number 9. Lauren Anthony Ball. In 2002, a police officer shot and killed a murder defendant in a Milwaukee courtroom. The defendant, Lauren Ball, had jumped into the jury box and tried to break through a window in order to escape after being declared guilty of murder. In the commotion, Ball had taken a gun from one of the deputies who was trying to restrain him, and he fired the weapon, hitting a 35-year-old veteran in the leg. The second deputy had managed to grab a semi-automatic weapon, preventing further shots, and Ball then bit the second deputy on the arm. A Milwaukee police detective who was present for the verdict had fired several shots, which resulted in Ball's demise. Both of the deputies would be treated and released from the hospital, and a defense attorney had also suffered minor injuries after being hit in the face. Ball had been incarcerated since February of that year and was awaiting trial for felony murder along with 2 counts of armed robbery. Authorities had actually received an anonymous tip that suggested that Ball might try to escape, and the plan reportedly involved switching ID wristbands with another detainee or even attacking deputies during the court appearance. While the outcome was tragic, it did prompt a reevaluation of security procedures, ultimately leading to improvements that were aimed at preventing similar incidents from taking place again in the future. The events that day remain etched in the collective memory of everyone who witnessed them and serves as a testament to the courage and resilience displayed by law enforcement officers who risked their lives to uphold the principles of justice while protecting their communities every single day.